This is Damian Macy of the Friends of the Library in Marshall. I have with me today for our oral history project, Betty Beabout. And today is Wednesday, May the 21st. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to Betty. She's right here, and I bet has an interesting story to tell us.
Okay, I was born in Walnut Prairie, December the 10th, 1935, to Rollin and Florence Letterman Copper. I am the middle child. I had an older brother, Bob, a younger sister, June, and then my first grade of school, I went to Snyder. My teacher was Florence Newport.
Yeah.
And that year, she gave all the boys a knife for Christmas. All the girls got a dish. I still have my dish, even though my aunt had a fit that a little girl would get a dish. But I love it. I still use it at Christmas time. And
Is it kind of a bowl or is it a flat dish?
it holds 3 oranges.
Oh, okay.
It's a hobnail 3-section dish. It holds 3 oranges. And I thought that was the neatest thing.
Why, sure it is.
And then I turned 7 in December. My mother died January the 1st of 1943. So her parents raised all 3 of us. And I stayed with them until I graduated from high school in '55. Then I got married and moved away.
Now, was this all in the West Union area or Walnut Prairie area?
My grandparents lived just south of Darwin.
Okay.
So my husband, when he was going with me and married me, he called me a river rat. And he said, in the summertime, you didn't get out of the vehicle and walk around because the mosquitoes would carry you off. So anyway, I stayed with them until I got married. And then Richard was in the Army. And he was stationed at Granite City, Illinois. So our first child was born in Granite City in '57. And then he got out of the Army. We was back here for a little bit, but with jobs being scarce, he went to Caterpillar, so we moved to Morris, Illinois, and he worked at Caterpillar, and our second child was born there. And then in November of 1973, we moved back here to Livingston. And both of in the meantime, I graduated from Marshall High School. And in grade school, I attended the brick church and the brick school. So then it closed down, and I went to Marshall for junior high and high school. Then we moved back here. Both my boys graduated from Marshall High School. So when we get a class reunion, it's all 3 of us is on the same year. I graduated in '55. My oldest one graduated in '75. The other one in '80. So we'd say, "Did you get an invitation yet?" It was
What a celebration.
Yeah. And so then we moved back here at Livingston. I'm still there, and my hobbies is taking care of hummingbirds. And last year I kept track of how much sugar I used, and in April I started filling feeders, and I filled them until the middle of October, and I went through 175 pounds of sugar last year.
Well, that makes you awfully sweet.
And my kids call my patio the hummingbird airport because you sit there, and a friend of mine came out in late September, and she's sitting there and hummingbirds are flying through, and oh, this is mild. They're only 25 or 30 now. You should have been here when there was over 100. And
Do they fear you at all, or are they just...
oh no, you look out for them.
They're kind of skittish usually.
Oh, I had one set up, come down and fly and sit on the arm of my patio, my
Boy.
swing the other day, and I'm sitting there, and it just sat there and looked at me.
Well, to me, they're such a fascinating bird because I hear that they fly thousands of miles come the change of the seasons to migrate back to the south.
And you can look at them, and they're all different colored.
So tiny.
And this one the other day had little tiny short beaks, so I think it was a baby. But there's different, it's fun to watch them because they're different colored.
Yeah.
And somebody says, oh, I didn't know they have different colors. I said, you gotta look at them. I mean, they said, well, mine don't sit that long. They don't have that many.
Usually they're flittering around.
And some of them are territorial. They'll chase the others away, but they're fun to watch.
Have you studied anything from like the Audubon Society or anything to study birds?
No. And right now I got two baby doves come off their nest, and they're not flying yet.
Oh boy.
So I'm watching them, and they watch me. But I watched them while they were on the nest, and they knew I threw out feed for the adults. And so they're not afraid of me.
Do they, I guess, do you have any cats?
No.
Okay, I was going to say if you do, that's a danger area.
Yeah, no, I don't have cats, and I try not to keep any strays coming around.
Okay.
So.
Because could be a problem for birds.
Yeah, because I've had them come out there and sit and watch, and I chase them off, and I try not to put any food out, for cats, and now it's just opossums.
So when you moved back to Livingston, were you going to any place to work, or is Richard going to work any place, or is that kind of help what settled you back here?
I started working at TRW. Well, I worked at Zenith, and then they moved out, and I went to TRW, and I retired from there in '98. And then 3 months after I retired, I started driving the veterans to Danville, VA. And in 2000, they made me coordinator for Edgar and Clark County. And I still do that. I retired from driving in 2016 to take care of Richard. And but I'm still coordinator, and that's a full-time job because now we take the van to Illinois and Indiana. And the other day, my driver put on last month, he'd done over 1,000 miles because he takes them to to Indianapolis, VA, Danville. He's been to Champaign, and so we're everywhere now.
What period of time was that 1,000 miles put on?
He done it within a month.
In a month? What?
Some months it's only 300, some 500, but in May it was real.
Okay, now if he's going, most of what your travel here is to Danville, isn't it?
The other day he went to Danville, the other Friday he went to Danville that morning, got back and took a guy to Terre Haute for an afternoon appointment. So he was busy.
But your Indianapolis area would be a lot more geography then too. That include Indianapolis.
He takes them to the VA over there.
Okay.
And then he also has to take some of them to the VA, the VA at Terre Haute, also up to Union Hospital for some of their appointments up there. Wherever they need to go, he takes them. And I do all the paperwork.
I bet that's quite a bit of paper too.
He didn't know how many miles he put on till I told him.
With the coordination of this, how does someone let you know that does someone just call and say, I need a transport?
they call me and tell me they have an appointment we're at, and I notify the driver. We try to do our calendars a month ahead. So that way, if the driver has a doctor appointment, he can schedule it. And then I fill out all the paperwork. I have to know their phone numbers and their birth dates so I can do the paperwork and where they're going. And then I make a trip into van garage. I put a clipboard in there, and I put the paper in there for the driver, and he can turn it in. So
do the vans and all of that radiate or go out from Marshall? And where are the vans kept? Do the drivers have them in their possession?
the driver, we keep the van at the garage behind the VFW. We have a, when they built that garage, that one section on the west end was for the veteran van. And so driver comes in there, gets a van. We got a driver at Paris, but he's also the commander of the V. So right now, he's too busy. It doesn't have much time to drive. But we are looking for drivers. And
I suppose they're all on a volunteer basis too, I think.
it's on a volunteer basis. I had one phone call the other day. One guy told me he was looking for a part-time job to supplement his income. I said, this wouldn't be a good job. But people don't want to volunteer. They want to be paid. And some of them don't want to get up early. But the hours have changed on the veteran van now. Used to, when I started, we left early in the morning. We were up there at Danville by a little after 7.
Ooh.
And we didn't get out of there till 12. Well, now, they go by your appointment time. If you got an 11 o'clock appointment, they don't go at 6 or 7. And the driver, I'll tell him when the guy's appointment is, he calls him and tells him what time he'll pick him up, because now we can pick them up at their house.
Oh, okay.
They don't have to try to find a way into the B.
Good. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's obviously some maintenance costs in all of that van. Where, I don't mean to be nosy, but where does the funding for that, taking care of it, come from? The Veterans Administration?
This van was sponsored by the American Legions in Marshall and Paris, and the VFW and Danville VA. And all the mechanical work, gas, oil changes, and everything like that is done up at the VA. But if they're busy and it needs an oil change right now, since it's a Ford van, it gets done here in Marshall. And then I get the paperwork and turn it in.
Because is that your schedule then to try to get that into service and take care of it then, I guess?
Luckily, my van driver is excellent.
Oh.
He does this when it needs it, because he drives it. He knows when it comes up it needs to be done, and he takes care of it. And leaves me the paperwork to turn in. So.
Do you have any of them that come up on like an emergency basis? I've got to get there in so many hours.
If that does, we call the wrecker, turn in the bill. And when I retired from driving, I had 6,250 hours. Just
what
driving.
You do in your spare time?
In my spare time, I like to bake for the veterans at Hudsonville.
So at least now you've kind of backed away a little bit from the active part of it, but it sounds like you've still got your fingers in a lot of the doings and taking care of the people and getting the schedules out. Yep,
I have to do the paperwork, and right now, instead of running in 2 or 3 times a week, since we do our try to do our calendars monthly, why, I try to figure out, okay, these people go this week. I'll take them all in now. But then if you get another call, you have to go in and add this name to this one or make out a different paper. So I spend time, and I do reports for the VFW and the Legion monthly. So they know, since they sponsors, after I took this over, I thought, they sponsor these, us. They need to know what we're doing, how many hours, miles and hours we do. So I do all that and give them reports. And the lady that had it before, she bawled me out. She said, "You don't need to do all that." I said, "Yes, I do. They sponsor us. They need to know what's going on."
I think they'd want it.
Yeah, and they like it.
I'm sure.
So,
Well, it sounds like you're retired, semi-retired, but very busy. Do you have some hobbies, and do you have pets or anything?
just the birds.
Birds.
And then my hobbies, I like to do crafts. I took an antique wooden ladder and made it into a Christmas tree this year. And then I like to bake. And I will be baking for Memorial Day for the Legion. They're serving they're having a memorial service, and they're having a dinner and the auxiliary. Since I'm a member of the American Legion Auxiliary, and I'm also a light member of the VFW Auxiliary. But I try to take diabetic stuff. Nobody else will do diabetic stuff. And about half of them down in Hudsonville are diabetic. And one guy always says, "Don't forget me, I want a diabetic apple pie." Because I always take them pies for Veterans Day. And one lady said, "Just bake them an apple pie, they won't know the difference." Their body will.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'll do the diabetic." So I always take diabetic stuff in to Memorial, because somebody will ask if I brought any diabetic stuff.
Sure. So you like to bake. Do you favor any particular thing, a particular pie or a particular cake?
Angel food cake, zucchini bread, pineapple upside down cake.
Oh, that's good too. Love it.
And if I do cookies, I don't want to do just one kind. I get 6 or 8 cookbooks and see which recipe will make the most for what I got.
Sure.
Like if this one makes 6 dozen, why bother with 3 dozen?
More the merrier. So have you developed any of your own recipes?
I have changed some of my recipes. One year we had a carry-in dinner at TRW. So I decided to make meatballs. Somebody else had took meatballs, but mine was completely gone. And they spent the day going around to see who made them meatballs. And come to find out, they come to me and they said, "What'd you bring today?" And I said, "Meatballs." They said, "What was they in?" I told them. They said, "That was it." They wanted the recipe. Well, the meatballs were simple. I bought them from Sam's Club frozen. But it was a sauce. And I changed everything from different cookbooks and made my own sauce.
Did you write it all down?
I got it in a cookbook. We had a convention for the National DeSoto Club one year. We had a convention here in Marshall, I think of 2017. And so for one of our fundraisers, I suggested we make cookbooks. So we made a DeSoto cookbook. So I put that recipe in it. But at TRW, from one of my friends, she said, "How did you make that?" So I done her a starter kit.
Works.
And I said, here's a starter kit. Now you get the meatballs.
So do you have a collection of cookbooks?
Oh, yeah.
I thought so.
And when a church, like our churches that I go to, would have cookbooks for sale, I always bought 4 or 5, and then I'd give them out for gifts.
That's nice.
And
you probably found a few recipes in there you wanted to try too.
when I find a good one, I put a star at the side of it. I need to take a paper and write down cookbook so-and-so, page so-and-so, but I haven't had time to do that yet.
Because if you don't catalog them, it might be a little difficult to find out, well, which book is that in?
That's why sometimes I got 8 or 10 cookbooks laying out. And I am president of the DeSoto Club,
I've heard of that.
and we got a convention in June, but I'm not going to go to it. It's at Akron, Ohio. But I decided instead of spending $2,000 or $3,000 to go to that, I'm going to put it on my 47 DeSoto. Because right now it is stripped down to bare metal. My oldest son and Rex Hain are redoing my car for me for my birthday.
Wow, that sounds great.
It's stripped down, so this time, the first time when I got it, I sanded it. This time I don't have to. They done it, the hood is off of it, the trunk is on it, the sun visor's off, the fenders are off. It looks like a hot rod. But they're going to have it done for me for the first Sunday in October when I go to the hill climb.
What color is it going to be? Black?
I told them back to the original black, but they were standing out there. This would be good in orange, and this in black, or maybe how about pink? And I thought, and I hope it's black. And I had already bought new side windows for it, because the little wing glasses,
Oh, yeah.
I put my little hill climb stickers on. Because every year when you compete, you get a little hill climb sticker. Well, I had one little place I could look through and look out to back up. Well, that's too dangerous. Well, the glass was broken. So I've got new windows for both sides of the front doors. And
Have you been able to resurrect any of the stickers, or do you know?
yeah, they took the wing glass out and brought it in to me.
Okay, you kept
It
it.
is full of stickers, but Newport will replace them stickers for me to go on my new windows where I want them. And I got 2 stickers on the back window because this one was too full.
Where did that original car come from? Who bought it, do you know? Or where did
Yeah,
you
I
get it
seen
from?
it. Richard and I had started going to the hill climb back in early 80s while we were still working. So we liked it. He said, you know, maybe we need to get a car and compete in this. So we started watching magazines, and he took the old Cars and Parts magazine. So there's one in there for Des Moines, Illinois. This lady had a variety of cars. So we called, and she said, we set up a date we could go down one Saturday when we wasn't working. We went down there. He said, pick out whichever one you want. Oh, they had Henry J's, Studebakers, and
A lot of things.
and the guy had a bunch of them in a museum, and he passed away. But these cars he was going to do and never got done. So I decided, this 4-door sedan with a sun visor. Looked like an old lady's car. I thought, but I'm not old yet, but I'll get there someday. And that's what I picked out.
Driving Miss Betty.
And I named my car Miss D. And I even made a little wooden license plate to go on top of my license plate. It says Aunt D. Aunt D is what I call her. And I put flowers on it, and I got flag holders on it.
Now, you can get an antique license plate too, can't you?
Yeah, Yep, we have antique license plates.
So that car that you're talking about then, I'm going to use the word, is it roadworthy? Can you take it out and drive it anywhere you want?
Yeah, They don't want you, like one time, my modern vehicle was broke down. So I talked to the Marshall Police.
Oh.
Well, you're not supposed to be driving that back and forth to work.
That's kind of what I thought.
So they said, well, since you talked to us, just don't take the same street every day. But no, and one time I was going to take it to Michigan to a convention. This is back when I was working. And after I got it done, and I bought it in '87. I had it done in '88. And so we was going to Michigan, and one of the girls I work with said, well, what time are you going to have to leave? I said, regular time. Well, yeah, but won't that go slow? I said, I try to hold it at the speed limit. And she, really?
I think the late 40s cars, a lot of them were just beautiful, and they were so solid and big. They were spacious inside even.
Mm-hmm.
How many miles do you have on it?
Heck, I don't know. But it's got a little light up on the dash that if you're speeding, it shows you.
Now that was an early thing to have.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have air conditioner. Now the 60 does, but this one doesn't.
You could probably add an air conditioning system to that somewhere.
Probably could, but when we went down and I got this car in '87, and then 2 weeks later, my neighbor took his trailer. Him and Richard went and got it. And so that first year in '88, when I run it up the hill, I got first place trophy. And so I sent this picture and wrote a note to this lady I bought it from.
Oh.
And also up there that weekend, there was one of the cars that had come from her place. And so I told her about that, and nobody else ever sent me a letter.
That was probably a good thing, kind of a heartfelt
Yeah.
appreciation.
And so, anyway, yeah. I've been competing up there since '88, and I think I've got 18 trophies.
Oh boy.
First, second, third. But now I'm competing with 7 men. And
I wouldn't address that one.
but there's 2 of them that's got, I'll call them foreign cars. They're not DeSotas. And the others are DeSotas. So we know the first 2 are going to get first and second. One DeSota is going to get third. And I hope this year my DeSota, I do it for fun. I mean, if I lose, I don't care. I'll shake the winner's hand, but one of the guys wouldn't shake my hand one year.
That's narrow, so narrow.
But anyway, I do it for fun. If you get trophies, you just got to clean them anyway, so I do it for fun.
Well, Betty, are the cars there by category or by make, or how are they?
Yeah, they have you in categories, like I'm in H3, like the models they use are together, the Model Ts, and I'm in the discontinued make.
Okay.
And so I'm in H3. Richard's car would have been an H4. And as he always said, it's a good thing we wasn't in the same class. There'd been divorce because I won more trophies than he did. But we both had fun doing it, and now my oldest one is inheriting his dad's '54 DeSota and trying to get it back. And
Well, that's a beautiful car too.
because the transmission was having problems, and
Yours doesn't have an automatic either, I'm sure.
mine is a fluid drive.
Overdrive, yeah.
Fluid drive, so it's called semi-automatic, and so. But
Do you know what kind of mileage you get on the car?
no, I don't. But I made it up the hill. They always give us a time, and this last year they said I squalled the tires when I went up the hill. And one year my son he drove for me a couple years because I had to have a hip replacement and I wasn't able to use both pedals. Because with him you have to shift and you need both feet. So he covered for me a couple years, and he squalled the tires, and I bawled him out for burning the rubber. Well, then, this last year, they said, you burnt some rubber off this year. But anyway, I have fun doing it.
Well, I have seen pictures of that, but I'm not sure exactly how. It's just one car at a time, right?
One car at a time.
And is it on a time?
It's on a time, and they have like the Christmas tree pole here. It starts out, you look at that. They say, are you ready? It'll be yellow or red, yellow, and green. And as soon as that turns yellow, you better get ready, because when it goes green, you better go. And you go up the hill. You remember Don Smith that used to take videos all the time
Yes.
here in Marshall? He rode up the hill with me one year and took a video. I don't know whatever happened to that. But going up the hill, all you see when you get part way up is your hood ornament in the sky. And when you think you're at the top of the hill, you're not. You have to go on a little bit and cross a line. Some people will let off as soon as they get to the top of that hill. But you got to go a little bit farther. And I went in 33 point something section.
Now, is the surfacing gravel or concrete or brick?
Blacktop.
Blacktop, okay.
Yep.
So does the cars that start always make it?
They have what they call the emergency vehicle on each side, at the side of the hill, and they don't start another car up until that one is up and they get the timing of it. And some of these they have to watch, and it takes them forever, and some of them don't make it. And one year I ran out of gas coming down the hill. Well, used to they would take us up and we'd turn around, and after so many got up, they'd bring us back down. Now they send you clear around. They don't do it that way. But I run out, so one of the guys in the DeSoto, if I need that, he'd nudge me a little bit and get me on down.
Now that brings up a point. Does a full gas tank obviously has more weight than a
See, I don't fill mine full. I don't want that extra weight.
Yeah, I was going to say that weight might slow you down.
I don't put extra stuff in the trunk. And you'll see other people pile all their stuff out. And last year I said, well, I might have won if I'd rolled my windows up. I forgot to roll my window up, because you always roll your windows up and you don't have the
wind coming in.
So I could have went faster if I'd rolled my window up, because the wind was pushing me back.
Well, but even with a DeSoto of the year you have, there's all different models in that. Some of them are two doors, some of them are four, some of them are coupes, and they've got obviously different weights. Are they all competing against the same?
They go by the cubic inch of your engine to category, to put you in your category.
Oh, okay.
So
the size of the cars can be quite different.
But that's like a Hudson in my class, his engine and everything, he's in my class, but he can go slower and still beat me. Or Studebaker. So.
Those are beautiful cars though too.
But they have some beautiful cars up there. But then they got, when I thought mine looked crappy, they got some that look worse. They just pulled them out of the cow pasture and around the old barn. Hadn't even washed them. And
so the judging is not obviously on looks.
well, they have a best of show too, but see, also they have a class down there where they have a show area, and that's for these people that don't want to beautilize their car. And what I do when I go up on Sunday morning,
excuse me,
I don't go up that weekend and see how many times I can go up the hill. I figure if I can't do it one time, I'm not going to wreck that baby.
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, why wear it out trying to see if you can beat your own time? And
now, do you have, I know you've got more than one car. Do you put any of the others in that race?
The 60 is too new.
Oh. So there isn't a cutoff then on the years that they have.
And we had the Dodge truck up there and show one year. But, so the 54, if my son gets it going, why, he'll put it back in the hill climb. But other than that, why, we just got the two we compete in, you know. But
So is the late 50s then the cutoff of the years that are permitted in that?
I think it is.
Okay. Well, when did DeSoto, didn't they make a car up into the 70s?
The last DeSoto was built in July,
60s.
June of 60,
Oh, is that,
but they
okay.
called that the 61.
Okay.
And mine was built in June, mine was built before June of 60 because the trunk was locked and they couldn't, I crawled through and I found the tag where it was built in June of 60. But then the other, or maybe just before June, but it was built in 60, but the 61 model would have been called, was built in June. And that was when they cut them off.
Now that 54 that you have, does that have the push button transmission?
It's got a Hemi engine.
Okay, but is it a push button transmission too?
I've never driven that car.
Okay. Somewhere in there, I don't know what year, they came out with a push button transmission, which was quite novel for that time, and I don't think they used it very long. So is that your favorite make of car? Or do you have something, well, I kind of like to have one of those or one of those?
You know, I haven't wanted a different one. So,
You're satisfied with what you got? With the idea that you have DeSotos, was that really prompted by that first one that you purchased?
see, and then when Richard got me this one, why, he wanted an older vehicle. Well, Titus had this 48 Dodge truck, and they were having an auction on the South Livingston Road one Saturday. Well, he had to work till noon, and I knew he was wanting that. So I went down and waited in the mud and rain, and I had to leave for a while for some reason. I had an appointment or something. So I asked somebody, a friend of mine, to stand in for me. And I talked to the auctioneer. Well, he said, well, I'm doing this, then I'll be back over there. Luckily, I got back in time to bid on it. I bought that Ford truck for, that Dodge truck for him. And once the auctioneer, they hesitated. He said, well, you know, the Centennial's coming up. You guys could fix this up and run. I'm thinking, shut up, you're going to run the price up. But it went up a little higher, and then I finally bought it for him. And there was even a dead chicken in the bed of it and all, everything. But my 47, when I got it, I opened the doors, it's all tore up, the headliner was down. Nuts from the mice and rats and squirrels and stuff. And I took pictures of it and took it to work, and one gal said, you paid money for that?
I'm sure.
I said, yeah. And I even put the headliner in that. I'd never done a headliner before.
That can be tricky.
And then I put the headliner in Richard's car, I put the headliner in the 60, and they're all different.
Oh, sure.
Some of them you have to take the windows out, and mine was the easiest. And then one guy at Casey, I think it was, or Martinsville, had a modern car. He wanted a headliner put in it. My neighbor, Bill Adams, told him, oh, Betty can do it. Well, I did it, but it was a pain. Because with mine, we took the seats out. Well, we took the seats out of his too, but there wasn't that much room. Where mine, I had acres.
Oh, yeah.
And in the trunk of the 60, you can put 10 people in and go to drive-in and hide them. But
That was a nice thing. There was leg room and there was head room and all. And those, in the late 40s and 50s and 60s, well, not so much 60s,
yeah.
but they were very spacious. Well, 60s were too.
Oh, the 60s got a big trunk.
Big.
I can get in there and crawl around and so.
If there was a car that you could pick out, boy, I'd like to have one of those. What would it be?
You know, I really don't know. Red Smedley had one picked out when we had the convention here in town because we had the DeSotas down at the TRW, and she had a station wagon picked out. She even sent me a picture of it. But no, I'm strictly a Chrysler person.
Okay.
So it would have to be in the Chrysler category.
Do you remember the Imperials? Mm-hmm. They were a gorgeous car when they brought them out to Verona.
Yeah.
I had an uncle with a new Imperial, I think it was in 1959, I think. That was when the fins were all, and the Imperials had a funny look on the back with, they called them bombshell taillights that stood up on, they're odd looking things. It was a beautiful car.
Well, now, see, the 60s got the tail fins, but it had them little clips that you put in there. People were stealing them.
At one time, there was a lot of problem with people stealing the hood ornament.
They were stealing hood ornaments, and I just showed Rex and my son the other day. I have a tailpipe extender.
Yeah.
You put on to, if you're in a car show, make it look fancy. So they got to get my tailpipe cleaned up, so we can mount that on there, but so it won't get stolen. I think they're going to screw it in, bolt it in, or something. You know.
Otherwise, they just kind of clip on, don't they?
They slide on there and clip on.
They're easy to slide off then.
But they said, I didn't know you had that. But
You remember the cars, and I don't know if they make them anymore, the spare tire with a big thing on extending the trunk bumper on the back and having the tail. It added about 10, 12 inches to the length of the car.
And see where my spare tire goes in the trunk? There's a thing on the outside at the back. You can check it.
Oh, you mean like for checking it for air?
There's a little thing on the back bumper. Inside the trunk.
A lot of the cars anymore don't even have a spare tire.
No, or you don't know how to get to them.
We've got one that's flat in the trunk, so if you have it full of luggage, you'd have to dump the whole trunk out to get to it.
Yeah, so.
You wonder, is that practical today? The spare tire's right there,
Yeah.
you can get it.
Did I mention that who my grandparents were
No? you
that
didn't.
raised me?
You just
Fred.
said your grandparents, have they?
Fred and Phoebe Carpenter Letterman.
Okay.
So I'm related to half of Clark County.
I was just getting ready to ask you still have relatives living in the Walnut Prairie area? I know the
Well-
Leathermans.
In my family, I've got some nieces and nephew and a few cousins, but all my aunts are deceased. Uncle-in-laws are deceased.
And families get so spread out anymore too that they can end up all over the country.
So now since the brick church closed down, why I started going to West Union to the Christian church because I've got cousins there. And so I started going down there, and
can put together a family reunion maybe?
Well, see, the Letterman family reunion has been shut down for, it seemed like after Uncle Willie Letterman passed away, it kind of, I think we had one or two after that. And so I'm working on that right now.
Well, that's a tremendous effort to try to put those together. One of the big problems is to get current addresses.
One of them said, well, how are we going to contact people? I said, I will contact my family. You will contact your family. Robert will contact his, each one of them. See, I'm related to Robert and Ann Letterman. His grandfather and my grandfather were brothers. And then that throws in some of the Hickenbottoms because they were double cousins. Because my grandpa's sister married a Hickenbottom. And yeah, it's a circle. So.
Do you have any of the genealogy of Richard's family?
No. And I've got a book on the Carpenter family, but I don't have anything on the Letterman family. I'm trying to put stuff together that I've got. But
Richard was in high school in Martinsville when I was. I knew him way back then too.
And you know, I have got a notebook. Well, I started one for my class and one for Richard's class. And every year when they had a class reunion and we got a picture, I've got the articles that the books they gave them,
That's a neat idea.
and the pictures. And my boy said, well, Dad's not here anymore. What are you going to do with him? I said, well, if nothing else, I'll give it to the Martinsville Library. And they said, oh.
Did Richard graduate in 54 or 5?
54.
Okay, I kind of thought so.
Yeah. But I've got the pictures of the class reunion, and if they have the little handout programs, I got all them in there. In the back of it, I got obituaries, and if somebody passes away, I'm still doing that, putting it in his book. Pat Roddy, I think, was the last one.
Oh, I remember she was a neighbor of mine when we lived up on Washington Street in Martinsville.
And I went over for her visitation. And
In my little class, I think there's 5 or 6 of us are all the only ones
you know,
living.
there's not very many in my class. And
Dwindling down. I guess we're getting old.
no, you're only as old as you feel.
That's what my mother used to
I
always
told
say.
everybody I'm going backwards. And they said, oh, really? I said, yeah.
That's a good way to look at it.
And Jim Tucker's on my case. I haven't talked to him lately. I don't want to run into him. He's wanting me to do a class reunion.
Uh-huh.
And
Say, Jim, well, why don't you?
then I talked to Steve Arney. He said, well, Steve and I are kind of burnt out on it because we've done the last
Takes a
few.
lot of effort.
Well, we've done the last few years. And the last year, Richard didn't go with me because he said, you're on the committee, I know what it was like the last time. He says, and I'm worse now, you wouldn't have time to take care of me, so I'll stay home. And so I'm thinking, Steve is a member, he's an officer at the Legion. He has to go in there every day. I don't know if it's more than once. He's on the funeral detail. He helps at Harlan Hall deliver meals. Me, I've got paperwork for the veteran band and everything. He says, let Jim do it. So if Jim calls me, I'm going to say, you need to call Joanne Huffington, Eleanor Macy,
Better not call her.
and Jeanette Ingalls, Yoakum, whatever her name is. See, I told Eleanor that night at my awards night that we lost another classmate. She said, who? And I told her Evelyn Rhodes. She said, Evelyn Rhodes. I said, yeah. It was her last name in the paper was Schweitzer from Paris. But that was the Evelyn Rhodes that lived there on Michigan.
Well, times just go so fast, and the classes just dwindle, and we haven't had a reunion for years because there's only so few of us, and
Yeah.
a couple are in, well, one's in Florida, one's in the Chicago area. They're not able to travel.
Yeah. And see, we got Roger Gibson, he comes in.
Yeah.
They think I should do it.
Well, it's been such a delight to visit with you, Betty.
Of course, this would have been our 70th
How many?
for our class. It would have been our 70th.
Sure.
Time flies when you're having
It sure
fun.
does, doesn't it?
So,
Is there anything in history that really you think back about and said, that kind of changed my life? Got you thinking, didn't it?
yeah. Oh, I don't know. Some people say, oh, it's going to rain. I don't want to do this. And then one day, one Sunday I went to church and the preacher says, what keeps you going? And I says, well, it's probably that mixed drink I have before I go to bed.
That's
She says, I'm almost afraid to ask what it is. I said, it's a hot cup of coffee and a glass of ice water.
oh,
And she said, you're kidding me. I said, no. I said,
excuse me.
I'm one of these that if you want it done, you do it. You don't say, oh, it's going to rain, I won't do it. I go out and start it, but rains, I quit. And I decided for my 100th birthday, I want a rocking chair.
Maybe you might try to get one before then. They're awfully mighty comfy.
But I told him I'm going to live to be 100.
That's a good goal. Why not 102?
Well, but I got to get to 100 first.
Yeah, but
Now,
just set it farther.
my grandmother that raised me, she died just before she turned 96. And I think my mother was the oldest child. My other aunt, I think she lived to be 97 or 98. But my great-grandfather Carpenter had 6 months to go before he would have turned 100.
Wow.
So I'm going to pass him
You
up.
got some good genes.
Yeah. And Richard's side of the family, they die earlier. So, but
If you were visiting someone in another country, and they said, where are you from? You said, I'm from a little town in Marshall. What would you tell them about Marshall?
well, it used to be known for the porch lights burn all night.
Mm-hmm.
They have a band concert every Friday night during the summer, ice cream social, and they have flower pots out that people keep trimmed up and blooming all summer. And
Are the people kind of rotten or not?
but I said, a lot of volunteers live there.
It's a pretty good place. Well, you've moved back, obviously. We moved back.
Yeah.
And I think so many people I know now, they spent a little time away from Marshall, but came
Yeah.
back. It's a pretty good place to
Well,
be.
Steve Arney come back, and Marilyn and Ken come back, and Marilyn, her daughter and I worked together at TRW for a while,
Really?
and then when she married, yeah,
Now that I don't know.
Marilyn's son-in-law also runs up the hill.
Oh, really?
And Richard bought his car from Jim Hoopengartner.
Yeah.
Come to find out, that's where Marilyn's son-in-law bought his. He got a Studebaker. So we're not in the same class.
You remember Percy Stanfield had the Studebaker dealership on Locust Street?
Yep. And the Dodge truck we got used to be at the old feed store up here where the VFW was.
Oh, yeah. My dad at one time managed the co-op, which was right across the street.
No, Kevin Noble was Marilyn's son-in-law from Paris.
Yeah, I recognize the name, but didn't know him.
So,
Well, I enjoyed visiting with you, Betty, so much. I think we've got a lot of common background, but it's been a delight to visit with you, and I really appreciate you taking out the time today to visit for the Friends of the Library. And this is going to be in part of history. And that's why we're interviewing people. Gee, I didn't know about so-and-so. And you listen to some of these things and you find out news.
because somebody said, well, is that going to be in the paper? And I said, well, I don't know.
If there have been people who said they didn't want it in the paper.
Oh.
But now then, are we going to have a paper?
It would have to go to Paris, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
Probably. If there's a paper available, yeah. Of course, Terre Haute paper's available, but,
Yeah, I prefer Paris.
oh yeah.
I quit the Terre Haute paper after Richard passed away because, I was getting it for him. And because he'd say, what's the date today? I'd say, look at your paper. I made him look for it, And he'd say, okay, there it is. So I prefer the Paris paper if you put it in.
It's not like it used to be, but it is still a good local paper.
Yeah, I buy it occasionally. I don't subscribe to it, but I buy it if I go out to Walmart and it's just come out, I'll buy it. So I can check on stuff. Because sometimes they have obituaries in there from Marshall
Yeah,
that's
true.
not in this one.
Well, Betty, we've made some good contacts, I think. And the fact that Eleanor and you were in the same class, that made it more special that I wanted to visit with you.
So, but you can ask her if she would be willing to help on a class reunion.
Well,
I don't see how we're going to get it done this year.
I think I know